Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
It's the Morning Drive. It's Mira Business FM. My name's Tim Elliott. I'm very pleased to welcome a tech journalist of some repute, a tech commentator of some renown to the studio. Kevin Sebastian is with me. Kevin, lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you back in. It's been a while that we've actually sat face to face across from one another and ruminated over technology matters. Nice to see you. Well, there's no real reason aside from just getting together and talking. There's a lot to talk about, but the big thing is this Apple launch, the Apple rumours. I don't know what's going on, if it's going to happen this year or not. We were talking about the iPhoneFold, a couple of months ago, or what we think is going to be the iPhoneFold. Reports out at the moment seem to be Apple is thinking about an iPhoneFlip, and I don't know what's confirmed here. That's why you're here.
So the gist of what's happening right now is the leaks have already started, like we mentioned last time we met.
Yeah.
And I think what Apple are doing now is, let's be honest, the iPhone Air never really picked off or took off the ground at the moment. And we're looking at the traditional clamshell flip phones, which is what Apple are looking at making now. And I think what's probably going to happen is that they're going to, I fully think that the Air model, which is the very super thin model, might actually go in that segment as well. Because again, at the end of the day, Apple want to make a really super thin phone. They want to make a phone that appeals to the masses. Yeah. And I think by just making a slimmer version of an iPhone, like a regular iPhone, is not it. So I think that's probably what's going to be the next generation of it. I think, honestly speaking, Apple Flip would really be a really cool device to have. And I think that's what they're going to go. They're going to go back to basics right now and I think for one of the things, especially for Apple right now, is let's look at the Vision Pro, for example. Really cool tech, really futuristic, out there, but never picked up. And I think that's where we're at right now. We're looking at a place where phones are just being the same with every upgrade, right?
Sure. No, they are. I mean, it's funny. I was a person, I used to upgrade my phone probably almost every year for a number of years. And for the last sort of 5 years, my phones are lasting me 3 years, 5 years. And I see incremental differences, but nothing that makes me think, I need that.
Yes.
But after 3 years, there is a substantial difference, in speed, the battery, and all that other stuff.
Absolutely. And I also think that tech in general, especially phones, are getting super expensive. We were paying up to 2,000 to 3,000 dirhams maximum back in the day, right? And of course, components are now more expensive than ever. And now we're paying upwards of 5,000 to 7,000 dirhams. And now I think even consumers who are not big spenders, who people much like yourselves who not buy a phone every year, which is why Apple have their trading program. You can essentially trade in your old iPhone, get a discount, get the new one, saves the environment. That's great. But we're starting to see people now just be like, do I really need the latest thing when my phone does exactly the same thing as the other? And until Apple answers to these people, which is essentially 80% of your core audience here, as to why they need to upgrade. And I think people will still be very much stuck on their 15s and 16s.
Well, I think you're right, and I think most people, look at a phone and think, "Oh, it's a phone now." There's nothing unusual about it now, and you can't really tell the difference. I don't know an iPhone 15 from a 16 from a, really, it doesn't make a great deal of difference. And there are times when, of course, any business, any corporate has to shake things up. They've got to do something new. And I think the Fold, the Flip, whatever it's going to be called, is one way of doing it. It goes back to the old, the Star Trek thing, the tricorder, the Motorola Razr. I love that phone. Yeah. It took me ages to realize there was a camera on it because it was novel at that point. Yeah. But is this going to do that for Apple, do you think? Is it going to generate that kind of enthusiasm?
Yeah, and I think it's the starting point now because funny enough, Apple now, again, the foldable device, as we mentioned, is being built with Samsung displays. Samsung literally have won that battle there. Right. And essentially, I can't imagine that Samsung are going to make a better foldable device with Apple than they normally would on their own. And I think it's a win for Samsung on this front at least. And especially with, let's there's a comparison here between Samsung and Apple right now, because Samsung this month are launching their S26 line.
Yeah.
And a lot of what is being spoken about right now is not necessarily about the phone, because I think Samsung's already convinced that we can't keep changing the design all the time, and we need to add new software features, which they have. Like, they have an AI privacy feature, so if you turn that on, people next to you they can't shoulder read your phone. Like, they can't look at your phone from the shoulder, which is pretty cool. I think that's a pretty cool idea. And I think, like, you have other Chinese phone companies like Honor, Huawei, who are all innovating in their own little space. So Apple needs right now to have its innovation moment right now. Like, they really desperately needed one. And I think the foldable is going to be that one. I think the clamshell version of that same fold might come maybe in a year or two. And I will not be surprised when they say that when Apple will claim that they made the best flip phone. And I fully expect that to happen like 2027, 2028. By then, who knows? Will we have very thin, phones that can like roll up and put in your pocket? So the future is the limit, honestly. So.
Okay, so let's look at what we think we know. It's not guaranteed. It's reportedly being explored, this kind of clamshell phone. Maybe as early, the iPhoneFold, I think, is maybe as early as September, October.
Yes.
We think we know that.
Yeah.
So that's their kind of first step into foldable hardware. Let's look at what we think we know. It's always like this with tech, isn't it? The iPhoneFold expected to resemble a small tablet like the iPad Mini.
Yes.
8.3 inch.
I do think that the design that they're going for is going to be very pocket friendly. And I think that is why the Air was made to begin with. Like, phones for people who generally just want a very thin phone. Like, people who don't want to put, a slab in your jeans or something like that. And I think on that basis alone, we're going to, and design leaks have already come out. Like, just like when Apple sends out for third-party accessories, they send out like a usual dummy,
like case molds and these
pretty much like the molds and stuff. And the molds have come out, and we can see that it's almost wallet-shaped, and that's generally how it's going to be. And I think it essentially expands into a much bigger phone. But at the same time, it's a very novel design because it's very similar to how Google did it with their Pixel phones. And I do think that I fully expect this as well, that when the Fold does launch over here, you're going to have people lining up for it immediately. And I fully expect this to happen because it happened with the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Even though it's very similar, we still had about like 200 people lining up on the early morning of the hour in Dubai Mall at the Apple Store. So the foldable is definitely going to create way more hype this year. And I think this is also a secondary problem because I remember, and we had this conversation amongst people in the same circle. Why is Apple releasing the phones in the same gap as all the others? Because when you release the Air with the iPhone, say 17, you're essentially turning people off the normal phone. Or like, do you want to get the next latest thing? And then the foldable device, which I think personally is that they should probably have two separate cameras, which is what Samsung does, by the way.
Yeah.
Samsung don't launch all their phones in one go. They actually have the Fold and the Flip towards the end of the year, and they have the regular S26 line now. And I think they know for the fact that these are two separate audiences. People will wait to get the next best thing. But Apple have this tendency to like, let's release everything in one salvo, pick what you want. And I think for a change, and I think this is Apple's own problem that they've created, is that people might actually go for the foldable device than the regular device. Like, your Pro users are going to obviously buy Pro because that's the market that they like.
Yeah.
But people who want to buy the regular iPhone, 18, for example, might actually go for the Fold as well.
I mean, it's possible. I've looked at the folding. I'm an Android guy anyway, so I looked at the Samsung, and I like the look of it, but I'm kind of reticent because the crease thing bothers me slightly, not massively, but a little bit. It's sort of there, and I'm also a person that I think the tech's not ironed out yet. The engineering of it isn't ironed out yet, so I'll wait a bit. And to be completely honest, I mean, my phone's fine, so why do I need it?
And there you go. Therein lies the logic. People are now finally like receptive enough to understand, if this works for me, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And why not put my money into something else other than a phone? Like, if your phone costs more than a TV, like a flat screen TV, obviously, that's something to be having a debate on.
Do you know what? That's a real point. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, you go out and buy yourself the orange iPhone 17,
Pro Max,
the one that you see all the time.
Yeah.
That's a couple of flat screen TVs. If you're not going too big.
Two at
It
least.
probably is, isn't it? No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think is interesting about this, though, is a couple of things, a couple of the reports about the OLED screen and the creaselessness that it's apparently going to have. Like, apparently they've ironed out the issues there. And there's a couple of things. I have to read this because I don't really understand. You'll understand this. Flexible OLED, laser-drilled metal support plate that disperses stress when folding. So pretty much invisible crease. So Apple are, really going to make this as good as they possibly can, as you would expect.
Yes. So, prefacing back to how I mentioned about Samsung making the core part of that display.
Yeah.
Essentially, at CES this year, they revealed the creaseless foldable plate.
Yeah.
So what that does, in very simple terms, is it essentially pushes up the fold area and puts more LEDs to emit it. So essentially, you're masking the crease. So you're not the crease is there, like you can feel it, but when you look at it from like a very like specific angle, you don't actually see it.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty cool novelty tech because at the end of the day, that's what Samsung wants people to get. Like that's how you push the envelope on technology. Like how can I make the user experience better? Like you said, you have a problem with the crease, but then they're like, okay, let's fix the crease now. And I think Apple haven't necessarily seen that and said, okay, you know what, might as well just use that same tech and make it our own. And don't be surprised again when Apple say like we have built the first creaseless foldable smartphone, creaseless display, and I think it's going to be a combination of two things because Apple do make fantastic screens at the same time, and I think it's going to be a merger between the two brands, which is crazy, right? Because now Apple are now using Gemini for programming Siri, and I would have never imagined Apple to actually start working with other companies to essentially deliver their devices. But here we are now in 2026. That they're actually deciding to like, oh, what if we actually use some of these parts of these techs? And I think that's essentially what's going to happen with the iPhone Fold. That it's probably going to be the first creaseless foldable display. And then, funny enough, the next gen, like literally a couple months down the line, Samsung going to say like, oh, cool, here's the Z Fold. And with the exact same tech in it. And it just comes down to preference and pricing.
Well, it does, but I mean, I think Samsung have a prime mover advantage here, don't they? They have a few years of ironing out issues, understanding what consumers, how they react to the phones, how they engineer them. So Apple really have to come out with something a little bit special. So another point I wanted to bring up to you: the hinge, the materials, and how advanced the manufacturing process potentially is for this liquid metal, this metallic glass alloy that people are talking about. Apparently it's stronger, it's more resistant to deformation. And one of the things with the folding phone is, could I break this? I mean, breaking your panel phone at the moment is a little bit harder, unless, of course, you drop it from a window, which I have done. But that's a different story,
I do think that Apple are going to look at that very, very strongly because they are no strangers to being claimed that the phones are very fragile and very hard to repair. So the foldable device, and as a rule of thumb for me, and this is like from a consumer aspect completely, for any tech, if it's the first generation of something very, very new, I'd wait to buy it to see how it is in the hands of consumers.
I'm the same.
Yeah. And I just don't jump onto the next thing until I know okay, this is the second generation. Like the same thing happened with the Z Fold and the Z Flip, first generation phones, and there were a few middling issues which they fixed over the years with next iterations of the devices. So with the iPhone Fold, I think durability is definitely going to come in question, and especially when you're working in environments where there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of water exposure. How is that actually going to help the phone? Like, will it be, IP64 or IP86 or, dust resistant or water resistant? We don't know. I don't expect it to be either with Apple at least, because these are again going to be very, very specialized devices, and it's going to be even marketed as such. I don't think you're going to see people going out in the desert having a foldable device. And imagine you have an open fold and it drops on sand, and then suddenly, sand goes in the hinge.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and that's actually happened to my friend. I can narrate an example for this because I had a friend who worked in the desert, and he dropped his fold, and gravel went up his screen. Literally, as he closed it, there were a couple of rocks in there, and it kind of cracked the screen.
Right.
But because he had the warranty and the support, he bought it quite new.
Okay.
It was covered, thankfully. But how Apple Care would work here in this situation, that remains to be said. And the only reason, again, why Samsung has the edge slightly, is that they've been around here, and again, they know the target markets for foldable devices, UAE being one of them.
Yeah.
And the idea is that when the trifold came up, which is the more expensive way, which is the double fold, and 3 screens, 3 displays, only 5 markets were given access. UAE was again on that list because we then the consumers here tend to jump on foldable devices faster than anywhere else in the world. So, and again, they bought 500 units, sold out, and essentially that's where we're at. People are adapting more and more towards these kind of devices. So I fully expect Apple, when they do release that phone here, I do expect them to have all the bells and whistles to coming in terms of maintenance, in terms of repair, but I cannot guarantee that it is not going to cost you a pretty penny to do so.
Yeah, I mean, the reports are it's $1,000 in the US, but I mean, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
Something around there. And nobody wants a creaky hinge, Kevin. That's an important thing to remember, I think. The other thing is, when you have a foldable phone, you generally have 2, maybe 3 screens, as you've mentioned. That means battery needs to run those screens. So you need a pretty hefty battery. I'm reading that Apple are looking at high-density battery cells, the 5,000 to 5,800 mAh range, which is comparable to the bigger Samsung devices.
Yeah.
But you're going to need that, aren't you? Because battery life's everything.
Absolutely. And I think even if you look at the foldable devices now, each screen actually has a battery behind it, and that's how it's technically run.
Yeah.
They're smaller cells, but they actually have more capacity. And Apple, for example, and this is the main pain point I have at Apple, especially as an end user here, is that how our power users can expect for that battery to last them all day, because we're going to have claims of all-day battery life, but then at the same time, you sold the iPhone Air, and you said it's going to have great battery life, but you also sold the battery pack that came with the iPhone Air, just in case. So I'm like, okay, cool. You wouldn't have to do that if you weren't confident about your battery. But here we are today, where people are nickel and diming batteries now for their phones. So I do expect the battery at least to be big. At least it will last a good 8 to 10 hours, maybe. But again, over time, I've seen people claim that iPhone batteries have dropped in terms of performance. And I think whether you want to call it planned obsolescence or you want to call it the fact that you are a power user and you do use your phone more often than you realize, 5,000 milliamps is now the standard. That's the minimum, at least for me and for other people who constantly are on their phones.
Yeah.
So the iPhone Fold, I'm pretty sure will be around the 5K mark in terms of battery capacity, and at least around 5,500 milliamps if we're being optimistic here. Otherwise, again, form factor is important. So the trade-off is they'll have to make a chunkier phone, but the designs have shown it to be very thin. So that's why I'm a little skeptical on how big that battery is going to be.
Yeah, battery tech's a real thing, isn't it? I bought an on a tablet last year, and the battery in it is something like 8, nearly 9K, I think, milliamps. It lasts forever.
Yep.
But you trade off because it's not the thinnest.
Yeah.
It's a little bit heavier, and it doesn't seem like much.
Yeah.
But actually, when I'm walking around with it in a backpack, I notice it. I know these are minor gripes. First world problems. I get that, but these are all important things to people in one way or another. So it's something you do have to consider. Can I just, as an aside, we've got a few minutes left. Just battery tech, where battery tech is at the moment. You know much more about it than I do, but I still feel like I get good battery use out of my phone. It lasts me all day.
Yeah.
It does. But it would be really nice if it lasted as long as my Nokia 3310 did 20 years ago. As a grumpy old man pining for the old days.
I do think so. Like again, like there's in the world of batteries right now. I think there's a lot of talk, and it's all Chinese conversations at the end of the day, because more often than not, having a bigger battery, they actually look at having faster charging. And the latest Oppo Reno just came out now, the Oppo Reno 15, and their whole point is, and Oppo and Honor and Huawei, all the three Chinese companies that I've seen, have come up with something called the Super WOOC charging, which is essentially a charging technology, which charges your phone to full in 20 minutes or less. Like, yeah, and again, those are those big 80-watt gallium nitrate chargers. But the fact is that I don't think it's not necessarily that we're going to see bigger batteries, but we're actually going to see faster chargers where the batteries can actually store power more. And also the second thing being that is also about a matter of convenience, where right now I just put a wireless charger, I put my phone there, I know it's charging, I can just pick it up, whatever. But at some point, I do think that's going to change the trend as well. We're going to have extremely fast wireless charging, and I think that's where it's going to be, where you can just leave your phone while you're working, forget about it, it's charging on time, and then pick it up, and you have, again, a full day's worth of battery.
Yeah, okay, so it seems likely. The thing is, it's getting the right speed, wireless charging, it needs to be available, doesn't it? So there was always talk, and I don't know if this was just, urban legend or not, but talk that you'd be able to recharge because your phone was connected to Wi-Fi in some way. There was talk of that many years ago.
Yeah.
Is that just nonsense? Is that a possibility?
So not necessarily Wi-Fi, but there's something called QI technology, which is what most modern wireless chargers run on.
Yeah.
And the idea of like making that faster now, because again, there's a certain wattage limit right now, because most modern fast chargers, which are wireless, are around the 25 to 30 watt mark. Any faster than that, then you're obviously risking a technical fire.
Your phone gets pretty hot, doesn't it?
It runs pretty hot, and I think a lot of people don't like, especially even with most modern day chargers today, the fast chargers. If you actually touch the plug when it's charging, you can actually see how hot it runs. And some of us have done IR testing with the heat gun. Like they run like at 80 C on temperatures. So we need to solve the temperature problem first. Yeah. And until that's solved, I don't think we're getting like futuristic. Just put your phone there and it's done in like 5 minutes. Your battery's going to explode. I think. I do think that we are getting there, but the easiest thing to do right now is to focus on the charger first, rather than the battery, because again, you don't want to like charge a battery and then have a very hot battery and you put that next to your face when you're talking to somebody, which is again a classic example, the Note 7.
Yeah, quite right.
As we all know.
Yeah, as we do. I remember that very well. So look, at some point, Apple folding phone, probably September, October.
Absolutely.
That's the thinking.
Yeah.
Kevin Sebastian is a tech journalist, tech commentator. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
This is Mirror Business FM.